Can we envision a world where we rise up in the morning with a renewed mindset, an inspired spirit to do greater works, and return home to rest with the feeling of accomplishment and fulfillment? Welcome to the Coach Scofray podcast, where we bring you transformative, inspiring, thought-provoking insight for the love of coaching, for the love of leadership, for the love of human capital development. Follow and share to inform, inspire, and elevate. One of the areas of human capital development that is dear to my heart, because we say everything rise and fall on leadership, John C. Maxwell. We say that the kind of leadership one embodies and exercises has got a trickling effect on the community. As a student of leadership, as an executive coach, I am committed to support nurturing a certain crop of leadership style. I'm committed to altering existing leadership styles or approaches. Because when you look at the spectrum of what leadership is, you notice that there are periods from which certain style or approach of leadership emerge. And it is important that as the human evolve or as our life shifts, it requires its kind of leadership. Because I studied in leadership school with the Institute of Commercial Management, United Kingdom, that in the last 120 years or so, philosophers, scientists, yes, have all made effort to invest in the subject matter called leadership. That is how come in the 1900s, leadership was considered traits. So anyone who stepped up, the Socrates and their kind, anybody who stood up and stepped up for something, we quickly look at. On the lighter note, it's not a miracle or by accident that those of us from the faith community, when the prophet Samuel went to the house of Jesse and was looking for a leader, quickly, I think it was Absalom, became the toast of what Samuel could consider as, no, this person's appearance, the way the hair looks, the stoutness, the height, the embodiment, all reflect what a leader is. Trait. If you have the trait of height, you have the trait of bulkiness, you have the trait of baritone voice, you have the trait of this, you have the trait of that. Then we moved further to look at behavioral. Because a leader was distinguished in the way the leader carries him or herself. Behavioural. And you are to demonstrate in a certain way. It's not by accident that if you come to our part of the world, the king, the queen don't eat in public, the queen, the king don't do this in public, the king, the queen, there are things you are not required because there's a certain behavior you are not allowed to demonstrate as a leader. Then also we moved to the era in the human evolution where we started conquering natural disasters, situation, also birth leadership. I think when it comes to situation, I will want to use David, or I want to use Joseph in the Bible. There are other examples. If you come to Ghana, we have the Yasantua War, we have the Sagranti War, we have the 28 February chaos that garners independence and everything. All those are situations that something occurs for someone to stand out, to lead in a moment that becomes situational. So there is also that. Then we move into the era of relationship. Relational. You know, people who use their relationship to influence. People who use the spaces they find themselves in and the caliber and the quality of people in there to influence, to bring about influence. So there is the relational leadership as well. I'm driving at authentic leadership. So I'm taking my time to build this point. So when we get to that, whether we finish on this episode or not, you would have had a track record to understand the phases, the times and seasons in the evolution of man where leadership and its approach occurred. Then we came to the era of new leadership. You remember the word we've dazzled and bamboozled around, charismatic. A leader who has got the eloquence, a leader who can command, a leader who can, charismatic. Ghana have had its fair share. I grew up to see our late president, Jerry John Rawlings. I've watched videos of Martin Luther King Jr. I've followed some works of Nelson Madiba. I've also watched the oratory ability of Adolf Hitler. You know, one of the things that I enjoy is being a student of leadership. It gave me a deeper dive into contemporary, ancient, and now a modern era leadership. So it is okay. So charisma. A leader must carry charisma. And in the absence of that, people were not deemed leaders. Then we got to the era called emergent. You know, the Steve Jobs, when technology turned around, when things were shooting, things were changing, people were sprouting. Somebody invents something and spearhead that something into its fullest dimension. Somebody brings an idea, you are allowed to lead that idea to its conclusion. So that is how come the definition of leadership in its essence is difficult. Philosophers, scientists, experts, we differ on leadership, its definition. We differ because it's beyond trait, it's beyond behavior, it's beyond situation, it's beyond relationship, it's beyond new leadership, it's beyond emergent. And I'm taking my time to really shred out this nitty-gritties and nuances of how when we hear leadership, you want to question yourself whether it is, and the usual debate, born leaders or made leaders. And it is important that in just digging deeper into this kind of insight of leadership, which we will come to as authentic leadership, we must have the spectrum of where we've come from over centuries of how human beings have been able to lead or been led. All these play a critical role to give us an understanding of whether it is a philosophy of leadership, whether it's the science of leadership. Because at the final end, in one of the other episodes, which I will discuss in detail, what is authentic leadership? It is just to lay the foundation that there are various forms of leadership. So one of the definitions of leadership says that it's like preparing a soup. It must have one standing as the leader. There must be the leadership member exchange. So there must be a follower. There must be something they want to achieve together. And it must be a process to arrive at that destination. So it is imperative that, in France this year, when I went for an upgrade on my MBIT Master certification, it's an upgrade I went for on autonomics. During one of the submissions, I wept. Because we're looking at the neurochemicals, the neuromodulators and neurotransmitters that makes us think and talk and even our functions as leaders. And we know that leadership or the executive function of our human beingness in this dispensation from the survival state is full of dopamine, command and control, reward driven, purely sympathetic. So it is important for us to understand that we are calling for leadership. We are calling for shifting leadership. We are calling for leadership mindset. We are doing this as a coach. I have seen people transform their leadership because we're able to coach the beingness of who they are. From just the traits, the behavior, the relationship, the situation, the new leadership, the emergent, and brought them to a core. And I'll go into that in the next episode. This one is just to lay the foundation that when you hear leadership, the question I put to you as a coach is, what does leadership mean to you? Because I can say on authority, there is no single definition for leadership. No. There can be an agreed across-board definition, but that is not all that there is to leadership. So this has been the journey over the spectrum of time. How we have discussed the subject matter called leadership. From the trait approach, behavior approach, relationship approach, situational or context approach, even to the exploration of concept, because we've come to the point where if somebody birthed this concept for a period of time, so sometimes even the person may pass, the person becomes the face, the body, and the representation of that. So it becomes that leadership. So for us to get the benefit of what leadership there is, to create the shift required for this, our human growth, especially in a dispensation of artificial intelligence, AI. And as usual, our fixation for anything dopamine command control is showing clearly. Just as we did when we started manufacturing and mass production and everything, at a point we even forgot we are human beings. We wanted to consider human doings. So this is just to lay the foundation for us to discuss authentic leadership, for us to dig deep into the neurology of authentic leadership. If you love this leadership teaser and insight, please share. Because the foundation to understand the conversation, as we promise on this podcast, that it is going to be thought-provoking, not the business as usual kind of insight. Thank you. So I'm Scofray Nanayao Yeboah, a transformational executive coach. I offer corporate trainings. I offer consulting services. I've coached across the length and breadth of this universe. This podcast is just to serve you for the love of coaching, for the love of leadership, and for the love of human capital development. Thank you.